Alright, so for those of you that don't know, I'm the Creative Destroyer. I do some experiments with AI to show you, to help you form your own opinion about it. I'm not here to tell you what I think, but one thing I will share is I think Adam Conover's takes on it are kind of nonsense to me. Always siding with that AI is bad. To me, it's more of a it is what it does kind of situation. And for those of you who are not familiar and haven't seen it yet, I did invent something called the Carlson machine. And what it does is it debunks the sentiment behind the things that Tucker Carlson says on his program. It brings up his questions, and it gives real answers to them, which is not what his program is about. He asks these questions in the worst context possible so that he can confuse and anger his audience into believing stuff that they otherwise wouldn't even consider and honestly shouldn't. He goes on TV to make you afraid of the world around you. So here's an example of it. And what I'm going to do here, I have Manjaro Linux running, xbind keys. I'm going to put that in, and yeah, I mean, I had nothing to do with the decision of Fox firing him. It would be cool, and I would have helped, but now it's just going to generate the same answers because he's no longer on Fox News. He doesn't have a TV show right now. Will he move on to the other two, OAN, Newsmax? I don't know, but his reputation, if he has something that is too hot for Fox, it's going to be too hot for the other two, and those two issued formal apologies for lying about the election machines, and Fox News hasn't done that yet. But they might with the second lawsuit. It's not really looking good if you are a far-right reactionary. Speaking of, here's another tool that can and will be used against them. Here we have Bard. I already explained the original program. King Boomer is gone, so let's move on to the next. So here's some points that Ben Shapiro made in his recent videos. And Bard, not Shapiro, is going to address them in a way that will convince a far-right listener to consider other viewpoints. And this has the potential, and very well could, end fascism, because fascism needs fear. It needs the fear of the other, and even more important, it needs the other, or what? It needs you to not talk to the other. You have to think of them as less, even if there's really no evidence to back that up. And unfortunately, at the Thanksgiving dinner table and other locations, we have to have people with differing opinions in the same place. If I go to Applebee's, I'm going to find a lot of people I disagree with, and it's the same with McDonald's, it's the same where I work, it's the same where I shop. And with this, you have real answers that you can use to steer them away from bitterness, from anger, from all the things that are honestly hurting fascists way more than it would ever hurt me. So, on his point about civil discourse, I agree with Shapiro that it is important to be able to have civil conversations with people who have different views. And, yeah, I do. However, I also believe that it is important to be able to call out people for their harmful or hateful views. Both of these are free speech, and if you do not believe this, you don't believe in free speech. If you can't take the heat, you might want to move to a country that will only cater to your values, and even then, I'm pretty sure you will regret it. There's almost 100% certainty of that. We can have several conversations, drunk uncle, hypothetical man, while still holding people accountable for their words and actions. And MAGA is not about this. It's not about any of this. And before, it used to be a lot more difficult to go and fish for the information and sentiment that will get your opponents to listen. Now it's not. Now, with something like this, we have something automated, mostly, to strengthen American democracy by getting people to talk to each other again. And in a good way, not the Bill Maher, say something and do nothing about it kind of way. Political correctness, I agree with Shapiro that political correctness can be a form of censorship. Mostly, almost entirely in private settings, but there are some cases where, like, there was one in Oregon where they passed a law where COVID mandates didn't apply to black people, and that was just wrong, and it was almost universally agreed as wrong, and they repealed that due to a large outcry. And that's the kind of stuff I can get behind. Like, just because you could be... it's hard, man. It's hard to put into words, but if your law enforcement isn't trustworthy enough to apply the law fairly, yeah, they should be held accountable. By the way, I do have a honeypot here in the description. I just made a lot of federal and state, well, Minnesota law enforcement a lot easier. By the way, Derek Chauvin is like the most hated cop in Minnesota among the police on average, and that's just the average. And the reason I say that is because I'm drinking a Stella, which is owned by the same company that put the annoying trans woman on the can. And because I gendered her correctly, in the most polite way, there you go. Do with that what you will, but do it responsibly and in a constitutional manner. Yeah, limit government. The government should not interfere with the lives of individuals or businesses more than necessary. As a social democrat, I agree with this. It works wonders for Minnesota. As far as regulations are concerned, they change very little year after year. The regulatory stability in Minnesota is very high. It's not, we're not going to pull the rug out from under you. There might be some new labor rules added, like you have to give sick time now. But that should be a no-brainer with the healthcare economy here. This is the nation. Well, this is the state that heals nations. So, of course, that makes sense to me. But what doesn't make sense are a lot of laws in California and New York that are that basically criminalize every business, or I don't know. They just make it too burdensome. It's you know, there are laws in California that there are specific things that companies have to do in California that they don't have to do anywhere else in the country, and to a smaller scale in New York State. And we all know the passive-aggressive thing a lot of companies did with Proposition 65, that whole everything in cancer, California causes cancer. Yeah, and this gets the conversation going at the Thanksgiving table, and it's hard to not listen to a calming voice when you're constantly being fed anger, hate, rage, bitterness, no matter how deep in the rabbit hole you're in. And this is why I can safely say I've ended fascism in America. And I can say that even more safely because this piece is free. I have the text to this in the description. I have the bash for Linux, and I have the auto hotkey for Windows. Now, I was not expecting Tucker Carlson to be fired from his job. So much so that the original Tucker Carlson form of this has been mailed to anyone who could make a difference here, to certain officials that I am not going to name drop. And you can play with this. And I know there are some companies that are going to want to look at this piece and use it within their own software. And if done responsibly, it will reduce far-right and Stalinist radicalization in America and in other democracies in the world. And it could get us moving in a direction, moving at a speed to solve some very big problems like climate change, technology, right to repair, the ethics of AI. Again, I'm just a demo guy. I'm trying to get you to form your own opinion on this. Based on how I'm using this, I might say, well, this could be used for this case and that case. In the furry video, I said, hey, I'm not going to use this to replace furry artists, but it will help when I need something to send as the basis of a reference sheet. Except for the icon of this YouTube channel. That will be the Unicorn of Death made exclusively by AI. But other than that, yeah, I mean, the Midjourney, it can help artists, and if you like an artist of a certain style that can build something better on top of what you put in Midjourney, it's worth paying the furry artist. And these chatbots are really just tools to me. They are something I can use to get some of the heavy lifting out. Were they used in the letters I sent to these public officials? Yes. I used them, but I had to read the whole thing and make sure it made sense, and I put my own words in there as well. These are not a drop-in replacement for artists and writers or anyone creative, or even programmers and software engineers. If anything, the real reason Elon Musk is so afraid of AI is because of stuff I just showed you. Because I can automatically find things to say to a far-right reactionary, and no matter what, it's going to be more likely than not that they calm down. And if we have cooler heads, that means we can have real discussions. That means we might have some real gun control laws. Some real laws to prevent the wrong weapons from getting in the wrong hands of the wrong people. And there's a company that can detect guns automatically, and they say you can use that to keep weapons out, but even if you live in a state that doesn't allow that at your venue, no, I do not work for DoorDash anymore. If that happens, you will at least have made a red flag yourself that your security staff can use. They can follow a guy that looks suspicious and definitely has a gun on him or her. So yeah, AI is what AI does, and it's worth researching. It's worth figuring out what you could do with it before some really bad actors do. And it does have the potential to break choke point capitalism more than anything else in the world. So there is your gift. Use it well. Once again, I'm the Creative Destroyer. I just ended fascism in America. You're welcome. And, well, yeah. Have fun with it. There's some really good things that could come out of it, but what do I know? I'm just a factory worker in Minnesota. But just to round this off, here it is again. Some automated points against hardcore Ben Shapiro fans on the far right. I'm not sure if Ben Shapiro is a far-right pundit. I think he's more right-wing than far-right. This isn't always going to work perfectly. But it's a piece. It's an important piece. I know there are programmers more qualified than me that can make even more of a difference than I just did. And with real programs, real dialogue boxes, pick your pundit, that sort of thing. And to that, I say cheers. Okay, there's the answers to some of his recent points. There you go. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share if you care. I'm going to mark that a good response, because it is.